Now to our first conversation this Friday. The Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, that's the body for employers, has confirmed that at least 15 multinationals have exited Nigeria in the last 3 years. The body has also raised alarm over Nigeria's rising inflation rate. Well, joining us now is Mr. Adewale Smart-Oyinride, Director General, Nigeria's Employers Consultative Association. Great to have you join us, and happy Friday.
Thank you very much for having us, and Happy New Year, viewers.
And Happy New Year, too. So definitely this is quite a sad one. There are 15 multinationals leaving. That means job losses for people that were employed in those companies. What do you think can be done to either, attract new multinationals at this time and, somehow keep the existing ones?
Well, it's, once you have a clear view of the challenges, then it becomes easy for you to address the main issues as they arise, And it's instructive to say that for any business at all to exit an environment, it's not a 1-month decision, it's not a 2-month decision. It's probably a decision that they've considered for over a year or 18 months at most. So the challenges they faced, both from the regulatory context, from the legislative context, from issues arising from to access to finance, so those issues eventually will make a business to decide, do we stay or do we leave? Now we have many of those businesses that are leaving, and the challenge for us is the consequences of their leaving. Sometimes we lose sight of the key issues. Now for a multinational or one company to leave, it will surprise you that you probably will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other companies supplying that same company inputs. So once that company leaves, we've also put into jeopardy the existence of other companies in the value chain that are supplying that same company different inputs. So those companies, they will either close down or reduce their capacity utilization. So focusing on the multinationals, it's quite important that we don't lose sight of the many other businesses in the value chain, the many other employees in the value chain that will also probably lose their job. And what can we do, basically? What organized businesses have asked over the years has been a hospitable environment for businesses to thrive. It's globally accepted that for every 10 jobs created, the private sector creates at least 8 of them globally. And if we want to continue to address the issue of unemployment, then we must provide the private sector with the environment that it needs to thrive, environment it needs to be sustainable, and environment it needs to be competitive. It's as simple as that. It's not rocket science. Provide infrastructure for the private sector to operate, provide access to funds, let the fiscal and monetary policy environment be conducive, let government policies be consistent, because over the past few years, we've had issues with past administrations where there will be a policy pronouncement and businesses have made plans based on those policy pronouncements. And within a short while, government will unilaterally change those policies with their consequences for investors, their consequences for the business, and their consequences for the employees, not to talk of the community and all those who has some level of stake in those businesses. So our view is this: let government continue to provide an enabling environment, both from the regulatory perspective, also from the legislative perspective. Let the environment be conducive for any business at all, either it is a foreign business or either the local businesses, either MSMEs or SMEs. Let the environment be conducive for such businesses to operate. That is probably one of the panaceas to resolving the issue of unemployment, to resolving the issues arising from insecurity, and many other issues that we face in this country.
Right, because I guess if the environment is harsh for the multinationals, then definitely even the locals must be feeling the pinch, at this time. But looking at the body language of the government, at this time, what are you seeing for 2024, when it comes to, the business environment and, for multinationals and local businesses?
Well, I think without missing words, I think we can give this government some level of commendation because of the certain steps that has been taken. The fiscal and monetary policy environment is going through a bit of reforms. The Taiwo Yedele Presidential Tax Reform Committee is doing a good job, and we hope, and I hope earnestly, that the recommendations of that committee will be put into firm implementation. We also know there are a bit of reforms that are going on in customs, reforms going on within the context of issue of the forex. We know the refineries, Port Harcourt refineries, about coming on board to complement the Dangote refineries. So we know certain steps are being taken that might start to yield fruits towards the end of the second quarter or the third quarter of this year. Our plea is that government should, whatever intervention is coming, the intervention for the manufacturing companies, the 75 billion that we're talking about, the different interventions that have been proposed, that government will expeditiously implement those interventions so that those that are still existing can continue to be sustainable, and then we look at long-term competitiveness for all of them. So the overview, the trend for 2024 is looking positive, not in the short run, but probably in the medium to long term within the context of the year 2024.
Yeah,
the first quarter, the second quarter, we might still witness these same challenges that we have.
Right. We've heard from the likes of Mr. Orwani that before we can get a soft landing, sometime there needs to be a lot of heavy lifting, the first few quarters of 2024. But another burning issue right now is inflation. We've seen a new high. The last report from the MBS, 28.92%. Experts tell us that inflation in Nigeria will peak soon this year. What are you seeing?
Well, the concern for inflation for us, for employers, is more of a two-edged sword, or double jeopardy, so to say. Because generally, as the cost of living continue to increase, it creates pressure on the disposable income of an average Nigerian on a household. And if you remember, in few weeks' time, or a few days' time, the negotiation for a new national minimum wage will also commence. And if we are at this stage struggling with this high inflation rate, then it also put pressure or changes the dynamics of the negotiation within the context of the national minimum wage. So we hope the CBN will take proactive steps to arrest this downward slide, but it's part of the key responsibilities of the CBN. And most especially, they should be bold enough. When a policy or a regulation or whatever action you are taking, if it's not yielding the kind of results that you want, there's no reason continuing in that path. We should be bold enough to take a review and probably backtrack on some of those policies. A mentor once said, it's better to be a bit inconsistent than to persist in error. And that's one of the things that we witnessed in the last administration. Even when policies are not working, when it was obvious that things are going down the hill, they still continue in that path. And we hope this government will be bold enough to review those policies that are not working and also engage the private sector, deepen its engagement with the private sector. While progress has been made in the context of that engagement, but we believe a deepened engagement, a deepened partnership between the private sector and government will hasten our trajectory of growth.
And definitely the double whammy of rising inflation and currency devaluation, that weighs heavily on wage earners. How are employers managing employee expectations in 2024?
Well, it has been tough, really. It has been very tough, and we must commend the resilience and doggedness of an average Nigerian business. And the view for us is this: in the midst of the challenges, in the midst of the problems, employers have remained faithful within the context of their responsibilities. Employers have remained faithful even before government addressed the issue of the consequences of fuel subsidy. Employers have taken proactive steps to support their employees. Employers have come up with different work models, working from home, 3 or 4 days, 1 or 2 days working from home. So a lot of schemes, a lot of innovative effort has been taken by the private sector to support their employee. I must also commend the employees for their cooperation and for their understanding throughout this very difficult period. But I must confess that it has not been easy, and we must commend that resilience that has been demonstrated by the organized private sector.
And have employers been able to, manage to keep, employees at this time with the whole jackpot syndrome?
Well, if you remember in 2020, during the height of COVID, when businesses were practically shut down, we had an MOU with organized labor that employers will not downsize. And employers, we kept faith with that MOU during that very, very, very difficult time. And now when we are facing, when the economy is in transition, as some have said, I think employers have also kept faith with that agreement. The issue of downsizing, they always come up when it's become extreme, when it is absolutely impossible to explore other options. But as we speak, hardly will you find the issue of downsizing taking the center stage within the context of our conversation. Without prejudice to employers that have left, those that have left naturally, their employees will be asked to leave. And we are making effort and also hoping, honestly, that government reforms, when they start yielding fruits, those employers that have left will probably consider coming back to the country to reestablish.
Hopefully we can talk about maybe jackpot at some point, hopefully. But definitely we know, employees at this time in 2024, with their disposable income, pulled from every side, they might be expecting, more pay, in 2024. How are employers looking at this?
The need for a new national minimum wage is absolute. We support. We are a strong advocate and a strong partner with other social partners within the context of the negotiation of a new national minimum wage. It is due from the 30,000 that we had in 2029, and you agree with me that 30,000 can hardly take anybody home in 2024. So, I said the negotiation will start in a few days' time as affirmed by the Honorable Minister for State, Labour and Employment. And when we get to that negotiation table, all parameters will be looked at, the needs of workers and their families, the general economic situation, productivity. So many issues will be brought to the table for us to arrive at a workable and a pay that can actually take workers home. I want to preempt figures. I want to preempt an amount that will come up as a final amount or recommendation to government for national minimum wage. But we know that a robust engagement will be held during the committee's meeting, and employers are open and willing to make sure that things work on both sides, both for workers and both for the employers.
Do you think private sector employers can manage to raise wages in 2024?
Well, as I said, we are not averse to wage adjustments, and everything will be as a result of each negotiation. And it's also instructive for you to note that in the private sector, the dynamics of wage review is quite interesting, because on a yearly basis, there is always wage reviews through the instrumentality of performance appraisal, and sectorally, there is always either 2 years or 3 years negotiation at the sector level. So collective bargaining goes on in the private sector every 2 years or every 3 years to review wages and conditions of employment. So in the private sector, we are far ahead of the game within the context of wage negotiation and wage adjustment. And we are hoping that same instrumentality, that same dynamics will play out when the committee starts its meeting, for us to arrive at a wage that is realistic for workers, that can take workers home, and also we keep organized businesses in business.
All right, I do hope employers and workers can get the very best out of 2024, even with all the macro issues at this point. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us, Mr. Adewale Smart, Director General at NECA. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having us once again, and Happy New Year once again.
Happy New Year. All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we head straight to the markets. Do stay with us. This is Business Incorporated.